So, Jasmine uh, graduated from the BA in 2019, so same year as Manon, the other course. And I'm going to borrow the words of Shannon Granham from Magnum, which I've edited slightly down because it was really bigging you up. And I thought, okay, I'll big you up, but not in that kind of way. So Jasmine's work addresses issues of family, identity, trauma, memory, and ultimately shame and how to overcome it. She has used photography as a means of self-discovery, revisiting parts of her life and family history, and bravely sharing this history with an audience with whom these issues might resonate. Sorry, here we go. Aside from her intimate approach of storytelling, her varied visual language feels ambiguous and well-conceived. From intriguing creative constructions, free-form imagery taken to capture a memory or a feeling, archival images and portraits of her parents, the emotional impact of the images weigh heavily long after viewing. So that's a great write-up, I have to say. So her work is featured in Splash and Grab, BJP, Financial Times Magazine, Foxhole Magazine, Vogue Italia, and Loop. Jasmine is currently assisting Helene Binet, the rather wonderful architectural photographer who was a guest with us some years ago and was one of my favorite ever guest speakers, I think, because she's so lovely. So take it away, Jasmine. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know. Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Jim, for having me. I guess I'm going to start from the beginning. Which, yeah, like you said, I graduated in 2019, which is 2 years ago, although it feels like yesterday. So it means that I've started 5 years ago. And when I started 5 years ago, one memory that I have quite clear in my head is during the first week of the first year of university, I remember you saying that if we had a project in mind or a story in mind to tell, to keep it up until the last moment, to keep it up until the third year. And so with that in mind, I knew straight away what I wanted to make for my third year project. And I guess during the first 2 years, I worked towards it. I've always been fascinated around the notions of family. And one of my favorite books is Pictures from Home by Larry Salton. And I guess during my second year, I decided to come out a little bit more out of my shell and find a way to talk about these issues somehow. And so I decided to make work about single mothers. I've decided to meet some strangers and that I found on Facebook on single moms Facebook pages. And I wanted to talk to them, to hear the story, and especially to share my story and to talk about my story through my photographs of them. And so kind of talking about my story through their point of view. And this process allowed me to find the courage to then share my story openly and point the camera towards me and towards my family. I come from a single parent family. My mom and dad have been together 2 years before I was born, and then they've been together 3-4 years when I was little, and then my dad left. my dad has always been a man of mystery, I would say, and he would basically disappear. He would change his phone number, he would change his address, and after a while it just became impossible to trace him. And so I lived most of my childhood with his absence. I guess this childhood quest of mine of wanting to know who my dad was, wanting to know who he is and what he is like, kind of turned into it turned into my third year project. I knew very well that this is what I wanted to do. This is what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to find my family roots. I wanted to use this opportunity of having, maybe how much was it, 6 months of taking pictures. And my excuse was, I'll use this third year project to go and look for my dad. I come from Italy. I come from a small town an hour away from Turin, which is in the north of Italy. When we started third year, the first week that we started third year, I flew back to Turin to kind of start the project, or at least trying to start and get my head around it. So I went to Turin for 4 days and I started looking for my dad through the landscape. At that point, I think I was 24 years old, I guess. And I hadn't seen my dad for 10 years, 8 to 10 years. And I really did not know where to find him. And so on my first exploration of this project, I just decided to go back to Turin and look for him in the landscape and kind of explore all the feelings and emotions and memories that I had of him or of my family in general. So yeah, I started looking for him in every place where I felt his presence. And then I left Turin and got back to Bristol without knowing really what to do. I knew that this was the right project for me and the only thing that I truly wanted to do and explore. But once back in Bristol, I really didn't know what to do. I didn't have enough fundings to be going back and forth in Turin. So I had to find something for myself to do in Bristol. I planned a trip back to Turin in February. I wanted to go there for 3 weeks, but then in the meantime, yes, I had to do professional practice and I had to do, what else? I had to write the dissertation. But apart from that, I really wanted to work on this project more deeply. So I've started researching my family. My dad is some sort of compulsive liar, or at least this is what my mum used to tell me. And there was this story that my dad used to tell my mum that I didn't really know if it was true or not. So one day with my laptop, I started doing some research and I typed on Google the name of my grandfather from my dad's side and the name of my grandmother from my dad's side, and 10 journal articles came up. When my dad was 2 years old, so this was in the 70s, my granddad came home drunk from work one day. And when he requested for more wine, my grandma refused to give him more. So he stood up, he got a gun and shot her in front of my dad and his siblings. And bear in mind that my grandmother at the time was 9 months pregnant with the 7th child. My grandma died straight away. Her child that she was carrying died 20 minutes after her. And my dad and his siblings got split up and put into foster home. After I found out about the reality of this story, and I knew that this story was true, I kind of went into, I've started having doubts on this project. I didn't know if this was my story to tell. I didn't know if I wanted to work with it anymore. It felt a bit too painful, and I think I thought at the time that I wasn't ready to explore further, but I'm glad I did. I remember having a tutorial with Jim and Angus, and I remember them telling me, just keep shooting, do not stop. Keep shooting, maybe do something else, but just don't stop taking photographs. So I went out a night and I took some pictures in response to this event. This was maybe in October. So I had a full month in October where I would go out every night and take pictures of what was going through my head. This process really helped me. It was kind of very therapeutic and helped me express myself and kind of gave me the courage of pushing this project forwards. Then in November, I went back home for 2 days, randomly, actually. I don't quite remember why I went. It was probably my granddad's birthday or something. And I went for 2 days to spend some time with my mum. So I went without a camera. I didn't really feel like taking pictures. On my journey back, so as I said, I live an hour away from Turin, and I had my flight from Milan. So I had to drive to Turin, to the train station, to then take a train that would take me to my bus in Milan, that would take me to my plane to Bristol. The day of my departure, it was just a crazy day. I woke up super late, as always, but this time I think I literally slept through my alarm. So I woke up and I was like, oh no, I missed my train. I missed my first train. We need to rush back to Turin straight away. So I got driven to Turin, and when we get to Turin, the traffic was insane. So I couldn't even get to the train station. So I was like, fine, what do we do? Just drop me off the underground. I'll take the underground. They will take me to the train station. And somehow, hopefully, I will manage to get the second train ticket that I booked. So I get to the underground, rushing and worrying and not knowing if I will get this train. And when I get to the exit of the underground, I hear this voice that I recognize. I look at the person that was talking, and it was basically a man giving indications to a woman, telling her, yeah, just keep on going straight. That is your exit. I look at this man And I try to associate this voice to this person in front of me, but I don't recognize him. I can't put the things together. So I keep on staring at this man, and I decide to stare for even longer. So I think I just gave him some distance, and I started looking from afar. And this man was hanging around the ticket machines, asking people for change and trying to beg for money. After I think 5 minutes of looking at him, he moved his head sideways, and I recognized the face. So I just went up straight. I just walked towards him, and he was standing by the ticket machines, and I just went up and said, "Excuse me, could you help me use the ticket machines?" And he was like, "Sure." And I look at him and I'm like, "Are you Antonio?" And he looks a bit like, "What?" And he says, "Yeah." And I say, "Nice to meet you, I'm Jasmine." And there he didn't say anything. So I start freaking out, and I was like, "Are you Antonio Bruno?" And he goes, "Are you Jasmine as in my daughter?" So I randomly bumped into him, which at the time it was crazy, and the experience was very much dreamlike. And we had 15 minutes together, because then I had to go take my other train. And in those 15 minutes, I managed to take a snapshot of us with my phone, which I don't have in this presentation because it's not important. But I managed to take a snapshot of us together that kind of kept this memories of us two meeting real, because it just felt so unreal that I didn't know if I was dreaming or not. So I take the snapshot and I ask him for his phone number, and I say to him, "I'll be back in February and I would like to spend some time with you. So can we please see each other in February?" So he gives me this phone number. I go back to Bristol. I go straight away to Jim and I tell him this whole story. It got pretty emotional straight away. And so I wait until the moment I flew back in February to Turin. As soon as I get there in February, I call this phone number that ended up being disconnected or non-existent or whatever. Anyway, I was back, like everything was back from the start. I did not know where to find him again. I tried and contact my cousin, my uncles from my dad's side, but nobody knew where he was, where he went, where he was living. It was impossible to find him again. So what I kept on doing was every day, I had 3 weeks in Turin. Every day I would go back to the train station looking for him. At the same time when I met him, at different times, in the morning, afternoon, I just tried and tried and tried to find him again. And in the meantime, I documented this search for him, the struggle of this search, and I documented what I was going through, the feelings, the emotions. And then one day towards the end of my second week, I had to walk through a market to get to the train station, and I see him again. And bear in mind that in Turin is quite a big city. I think there are like 800,000 people. Anyway, I bump into him again at this market. This time I managed to pin him down, and we spent an hour together. That's all I had with him. And during that hour, I just wanted to document him. I wanted to remember. I kind of wanted to remember everything about him. So I just I was looking at him and I was taking photographs and I examined him and I kind of just wanted to remember every part of him because I didn't know, because this could have been the last time I would see him. And then just like that, after the hour, he was gone. I came back to Bristol with all these images. I put them together. I worked a lot towards some sort of order. Storytelling is just really important, and especially in this project was essential. So I put them together in a book, and I've put them, and I worked very much towards the 2 degree shows, one in Bristol and one in London that we had. I called this project To Catch a Thief. I guess being so honest and open about my personal experience and telling the story through art, and in this case photography, is something that many people appreciated, which is, it wasn't my end goal at all. Like I approached this project to find some sort of closure with my past and with my family. I wasn't looking to, I don't know, to get anything out of it if not closure. But the outcome in the end became completely different. I didn't get the closure that I wanted. I've opened up some wounds that now I think a therapist needs to work with it. But I guess my career started because of it. So a free range in London. On my degree show, I got approached by Emma Bouquet, which is the director of photography at the FT magazine, that saw my project and very kindly commissioned me to take pictures for the FT. So I didn't even graduate at that time, and I was already in East London taking pictures of this chair designer in his studio, and it was a pretty surreal experience. I went there with the writer of the FT, and I think we had an hour and 15 minutes to spend with this designer, and the writer took an hour to interview him, and I had 10-15 minutes to take a portrait of him, which was no pressure whatsoever. I mean, I just came out of uni and I had to make a portrait for the FT, and I only had 10 minutes. Anyway, it worked wonders because this person was just amazing, and we got on straight away. We had chemistry since the very beginning. So I took pictures of him, and one of them ended up as the cover of the FT weekend magazine. To Catch a Thief gave me more opportunities, and one of them being with Loop magazine. I got commissioned to make work, to make a cover story on national identity. So I guess I'm just really glad that all these things happened, because one of the struggles after you graduate is to keep shooting, which is something that many people struggle. It's hard after you come out of uni to keep on producing, to keep on taking photographs. And I think I'm really grateful that Loop magazine commissioned me this work, because I had the chance to just use my camera and shoot. So I because I just made this body of work about my family, I got pretty much obsessed about the male figures in my family. And so when I heard the national identity issue, I straight away thought of documenting masculinity in my country. And at the beginning, I was thinking of some sort of toxic masculinity more than masculinity in general. So I straight away decided to go to Sicily, first of all, because I've never been there and it's a beautiful land. And so I was very excited to go and take pictures in Sicily. And also Sicily, because I thought that is the place where you find real machos, you know, find the stereotypical Italian macho in Italy. I was wrong. Sicily is a place of great contrast, and I found such beauty and people were just so gentle. Of course, rough as well, but mostly I got really fascinated by how this masculine figure would interact with each other. So I looked for masculinity in small gestures. I looked for masculinity in details of men. And I looked for the classical example of masculinity around the city of Palermo. I was in Palermo. And whilst I was in Sicily, I contact my dear friend Mimi Mollica. I don't know if you all know him, but Mimi is a photographer from Palermo, from Sicily. He's a great photographer, and he came as a guest speaker on my first year of university, and I fell in love with his style, and I fell in love with his photography and with his personality, because he's just great. And during my second year, I've helped him. I worked with, what is it called? It's called a portfolio reviews that he hosts every year in London. So I worked for him for professional practice in second year, and there we built this amazing relationship, and we are really good friends from it. It's called, oh shit, I don't remember. Anyhow, not important. Look it up, it's on his website. So I worked with him and I got to know him, and so when I was in Sicily, I called him up. I went to see him, and he invited me to a retreat that he has every year in Sicily, called Sicily Photo Masterclass. So I had the opportunity and the chance to shoot even more and to spend a whole week in this beautiful setting in Sicily, working towards this collaborative project, and that is called Fracture, which is the project is set in the Belice Valley, which is a valley that has been affected in the late 60s by this awful earthquake that destroyed pretty much everything and left many people without a home. When they rebuilt the whole city, the way they rebuilt it's just absolutely awful, and it's not very, I would say, homely. It just doesn't feel homely. So during that week, I worked towards the notion of home. What does it mean to feel at home? What is home for them, and what is home for me? Because since I moved away from my mum's house and moved to the UK, I never quite felt at home. I don't feel at home here. I don't feel at home when I go back to my mum's house. It's just a pretty weird notion. So with Mimi, I had the chance to shoot this really brief project, but I had the chance of seeing him taking pictures and spending a week with him and Dowie Lewis, which is book publisher. And I had the chance of showing my work to Dowie, showing my work to Mimi, seeing how Mimi works. I got really inspired by the way he relates with the landscape and with the people in it. So I guess this opportunity was just great. It was just great to keep on shooting and during the summer after I just graduated. To Catch a Thief, I've entered many competitions, which I do. I'm not sure how I feel about competitions right now, in the sense that I don't enter them anymore. But before I graduated and after I graduated, I've entered as many competitions as I could because I wanted my work to be seen. And I got into the Southwest Graduate Prize in, I think it was, we had an exhibition in November 2019. And it was a great opportunity because I got to show my work in Shoreditch in London, again, kind of very close to the Truman Brewery, so I was there. And the event was a great exposure because it was really busy. Many people came up to see it, and I got scouted by Millennium Images. One of my pictures, the picture of the chair leaning against the door, got scouted by Millennium Images, and they requested that image to be used as a book cover for a book that will be published with Penguin. I don't know if this will happen, but still, it is just so important. My point is it is just so important to enter competition because one thing leads to another, and you get scouted and you get seen and your work gets out there. To Catch a Thief also ended up being part of the RPS IPE 162 exhibition, which is a touring exhibition. It is not touring at the moment. It is supposed to be touring, but it's stuck in Bristol. And through this opportunity, I came second. I won second prize, which gave me the opportunity to talk about my work at the RPS. The director of the RPS asked me if I wanted to get involved in more talks in the future or workshops, which is something really great. And I'm really glad that I got into the IPE 162. But also I got to know Shannon, that really appreciated my project and my story and just wrote these beautiful things about me. And Shannon is, she works at Magnum, and she was ready to put me in contact with photographers to work with or to assist. But at the time when she did ask me if she could do anything for me, if she could put me in contact with anybody, I just didn't have an answer. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just didn't. The thought of moving to London and assist a photographer was just too scary at that point. So I just let that opportunity slip for the best, because then other things came up, and I'm just so glad of that decision, because I don't know if I could assist a Magnum photographer, and I don't know if that's what I want. So after this, it sounds like I was having a wonderful time getting into competitions. I just graduated, going to Sicily, and yeah, I was having a wonderful time, but also there were times where it was pretty, I don't know, I didn't know what to do, really. I was working a shitty job in a retail shop. I wasn't earning any money through photography, and I didn't really know how to do that. I didn't really know what was the path that I wanted to take. And yeah, so I was just a bit lost. And then thankfully, Hélène Binet, which, like Jim said, is she's a great photographer. And in March 2020, she was looking for an assistant, and she asked around and asked the right people, which are the people that knew me and knew that I just graduated and that I would be better off working in a photography environment instead of a retail job. So she asked around, and she approached me because people told her my name and said that I'd be willing to work as an assistant. So in March, I got to know Hélène, but then the pandemic started, so we didn't get to work up until July. Hélène is a photographer based in London. She's really famous for her architectural photography. But to me, she is so much more than just an architectural photography. She's such an inspiration, such a great woman, an artist that is never. It's almost like she always produces. It's incredible how she just keeps on producing and making work and responding to the environment around her. I moved to London to work for Hélène, and I don't find London inspirational at all, but it's just incredible to see that wherever she is, she can take a photograph. She can find inspiration in the smallest details of a plant, or I don't know, anything, of a chair. Like recently she's been obsessed with chairs and taking pictures of chairs. It's just so amazing. Hélène works primarily with film. She shoots with a 4x5 camera and a medium format camera. And then what she says about her work is that her work is not just the photograph itself, but what's important about her work and what is part of her work is the printing process. So a photograph to her is a photograph and it's work once it's printed. So I've just been, if we're not out shooting in a, like here, I don't know where she is, we are in some mansion in England shooting from a rooftop, some insane location. When we're not out there shooting, we are in the studio, in the darkroom, printing and developing, and it's just so fascinating to see the way she works. And it is, to me, it's just so good to spend so much time in the darkroom and learn all the things that I didn't get to learn at uni because I was too busy working full time during my 2 years to, support myself. This is me and Hélène in Germany. I look rather beautiful with my eyes closed. Of course, we have so many projects that at the moment are in standby. So I do go to the studio every day. We are working towards new projects. It's just so fascinating working with her because, as I said, it's very important what we do in the darkroom, but also it's very important to see how her work comes to life and what she does with it. So she's publishing many books, and I help her through this process. I'm helping her through this process, or I'm helping her through the process of putting an exhibition together. We worked on putting this exhibition in Germany together. And I'm just learning so much, and she trusts me. She does trust me a lot, and she trusts my vision. And yeah, this is like one wonderful opportunity. Of course, I can't wait for things to open up so we can go traveling again. But what I'm doing at the moment makes me quite happy. Of course, I am still shooting for myself. I'm still taking pictures, not so much at the moment because I'm very busy with work. but I haven't stopped taking pictures. I don't know where this would lead me. I'm not really thinking about the future. But I feel like I've just started working with Elaine, and there is so much more that I can learn from this job that I want to focus on being present and enjoying what I'm doing, and then thinking what there's going to be next. And that's me done.
Fantastic.